but they are mainly consistency, a good hook, a director, unique content, and editing. But if you can do all those 5 things with your video strategy, then you will see some really, really good results.
You're listening to Content Logistics, a podcast for B2B marketers where we explore the foundational and sometimes frustrating elements of content. We're talking to the experts, learning all their tips and tricks. We don't gatekeep here. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of Content Logistics. I'm your host, Baylee Gunnell. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about 5 key strategies to making your video content stand out, specifically in the realm of B2B. How to stand out on LinkedIn or YouTube or any other platforms that you're using specifically for video content with the intent of making money. We have a very talented guest on the show today, Lyndsay Cambridge, and she is the owner of Jammy Digital, a content marketing company that specializes in video content. And she has so much success in doing this for her clients. She's helped several clients make so much money through video content and has gotten over 1 million views on YouTube with her clients' content. So these are strategies she's implemented with her clients that have been extremely successful, and I'm so excited to dig into it. We talk about a lot of really helpful tips on how to make this video content, and of course, those 5 key strategies. Let's get into it. It's so good to have you on the show today, Lyndsay.
Thank you so much for having me, Baylee. Really excited to be here.
Really excited about what we're going to talk about today. Lyndsay, you're such an expert when it comes to video content and putting together frameworks for that. But I think before we really get started into the content, I'd love for you just to share with the audience a little bit about your journey with Jammy Digital. I loved hearing your experience before. I think it'd be just really insightful for the audience.
So I run an agency, a content marketing agency called Jammy Digital. We actually initially started out as a web design agency about 10 years ago now. And we kind of learned through creating websites that the one thing that made websites convert and successful was content. So we published a book about content marketing and how we grew our own agencies in content marketing. And then lo and behold, people kept asking us for content marketing services. So we became a content marketing agency, and that's kind of how we were born.
I love that. I mean, websites obviously are so important, but I love that point you made about how the content is really what makes a website convert. Definitely. So one thing that you had mentioned to me earlier, with this content you create for a lot of companies, is this distinction between fame and fortune. Why do you think this is such an important concept for businesses to understand?
Yeah, and I think it's something that people are getting very wrong at the moment, and they are following the wrong strategy. So for every single client that we take on, we ask them the same question: do you want fame or do you want fortune? And all of them pick the latter, which means that they're the right clients for us. And they are 2 very distinct strategies. So if you want fame, and there's nothing wrong, by the way, with wanting to be famous, wanting to have that kind of career where you have a big following, you're on TV and things like that, that's absolutely fine. But there's a completely different content strategy compared to if you want fortune. With fame, what you're looking for is going after a very broad audience, really building your audience, maybe putting out maybe controversial content that gets people talking, content that gets people either loving you or hating you, that kind of thing. But with fortune, what you want to do is you want to really go after a niche audience, and you want to be able to convert that audience into sales. So the actual aim of it, when you're talking about fortune content, it's actually to make sales off the back of it. With fame, you're just after more likes, more followers, all those kind of things. But with fortune, you want to make sure you make sales. And that's the difference between the 2.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We sometimes, I think, get clients that don't know the difference between those 2 things, and they think that a lot of views maybe convert into sales, when I think you explained it really well that may not necessarily be the case.
No, and there's countless examples. Actually, Alex Mosey talks a lot about this because he went on a strategy of fame strategy for quite a while. So he was creating content around his lifestyle and, his, what he does on a day-to-day basis and all those kind of things. And what he was finding was that his sales actually declined because his
Mm.
audience, even though they grew wider and, he was getting loads more views, he was getting loads more subscribers, his sales declined because his audience wasn't interested in buying what he was selling. They were interested in his lifestyle content, his entertaining content, funny content. But those people don't
Yeah.
necessarily buy. So it's only when he kind of switched back to content around business, really aimed at his audience, did he find that his sales went back up. And it makes sense. You might get fewer views, you might get fewer likes, fewer comments, but your sales go up. So you have to be really aware of that when you're creating content, and people really focus on how many views did this get? How many subscribers have I got? But unless you're seeing the sales off the back of it, it is, as people say, banner two metrics.
Yes. Yep. We talk about vanity metrics a lot, and it can be tricky sometimes to explain maybe why those aren't the best things you should always be going for if you are trying to go for that fortune route, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's switch a little over to AI. This is a really hot topic, but in your opinion, like how has the rise of AI on like just so many different areas really affected your video content strategies?
Yeah, it's been a really good thing for helping us kind of streamline our service. So we don't use AI to create content, whether that's video content or blogging or whatever it might be. We don't use AI to create that content, but we do use AI to kind of speed up the process. And that's how we're kind of using it in our agency. So we'll do things like we'll use AI to help us plan content, to also when content's been created, we'll use AI to help us repurpose it. So what we want to make sure with every piece of content is that it's completely unique. It's original content. So it's always about someone's story, someone's experiences, their anecdotes, their client successes. It's content where you wouldn't find it anywhere else on the internet. And
Yeah.
AI cannot possibly create that because it doesn't know your brain and doesn't know your past experiences. So we
Hmm.
want to make sure that every piece of content that goes out has all of that in there. So AI can't possibly do that. But what it can do is once you've created that piece of content once, say in the form of a blog post, and AI can really easily help you adapt that into, say, a video script or a podcast script or things like LinkedIn posts and things like that. It's not that it never needs editing. It always needs a really, really good edit, but it does speed up that process. So that's how I would say that we're using it in our agency. It's definitely speeding us up, which is really helpful, but we're always making sure that the content that we're creating is always original.
I think that AI really can just help a business so much, especially you mentioned to me earlier, if you're on a small team, AI
Yeah.
can really help you work so much faster and more efficiently. I think too, it's crazy seeing all the like AI generated videos online. But
Yeah.
if you're really using good storytelling techniques, it's a great way to stand out from just the clutter and all the messiness online.
Yeah, definitely. And, time will tell where that actually goes. Because at the moment, yeah, you see kind of these fake humans that look real and where they'll be able to emulate us to the level of, as humans. It will be interesting to see. I never kind of rule anything out. But AI, I don't think will ever be able to create well, it can't possibly create completely original content. It has to take it from somewhere. So whatever you do, creating that original piece of content is the way to stand out, really.
In your opinion, how does a video strategy align with some of the companies, their more long-term goals?
Yeah, so a video strategy can help with both short term and long term. For long term goals, obviously, once you've created a video once and you've got it on, say, YouTube or wherever it might be, you can constantly get traffic to that video for years. Some videos, and even not the best videos, I might add, I produced 5 years ago, will still get me leads. It's
Yeah.
constantly getting traffic for you in a way that, say, ads can't do, because as soon as you switch the ads off, that's it. But with anything
Hmm.
organic, like long, video and say blogging, if you're ranking on Google or getting traffic to it that way, you're constantly going to get traffic to it and potentially leads to it if it's good enough for years without you having to do it. So you produce it once and it pays dividends. It maybe doesn't have that massive dividends straight away. Say like ads, you start putting them out there, you start getting leads and sales in minutes maybe, but it has that
Yeah.
long-term effect effect, which is really good. And it's nice to see like old videos of me where I'm, feel a bit cringed and then still pulling leads and sales in. That's always nice.
Yeah, the internet is forever, and that can be a great
Exactly.
thing. Sometimes it's also embarrassing. I, that's amazing. I've seen that with some of our clients too, when just older videos get a lot more traffic again, and that's always great. Video can sometimes be a big investment. It can be time consuming sometimes, and of course there's just the actual cost to producing it. But yeah, it can definitely affect those long-term goals and help you out for a long time.
Definitely.
Well, when we chatted earlier, we kind of talked about who should be the face of your content. And we kind of had mentioned, if possible, the CEO is a great option, but I'd love just more thoughts on how you approach choosing who should be the face.
Yeah. So for us, we generally do recommend it's the CEO of the business. The CEO or the founder of the business will always have kind of the most insight and the most, amazing stories and experiences, particularly if they started it from the ground up and it's like kind of like their baby. They have all this amazing, unique insight that no one else can have. And they also have so much knowledge as well. So the more that we can get from the CEO of the business, the better. Particularly for things like, say, LinkedIn or, Instagram or things like that, maybe where it's not necessarily that they have to be on camera. That's always really helpful because at least then you can gain it from them and they don't have to go on camera. For video marketing, all of our clients actually are the CEOs or founders of their business. And some are really, really good on camera. They're very used to it. Some are a little bit more nervous, and that's fine. And I think that that's completely normal. I'm exactly the same. When I first started video, I was exactly the same. I was a little bit nervous. I wasn't sure how to do it or what to do. But it's about having the right people there and around you to kind of coach you through it, I think really helps. And also just consistently keep doing it. You do get better and better at it. It's not as if like, you sit down and you think, I'm no good at this. It doesn't stop there. You can get much, much better at it. So where possible, we always recommend it's the CEO or founder of the business.
That's great. I really like your point of just practicing to get better. Do you have any other tips on just getting more comfortable being on camera?
Yeah, I think that the best thing to do, and what I find the easiest as well, is to have someone there that you look at and that you're talking to. And if they ask you questions, rather than you just kind of sitting there with a camera in front of you and then feeling quite cold and quite abnormal. It's a very abnormal thing to do. You think, I actually feel quite weird, sitting here sort of talking to myself. If you actually kind of look off camera and you've got a person there and if they're asking you questions and prompting you a little bit and you're just essentially having that conversation, that makes things much, much easier when you're recording video first off the bat. If it's a friend or it's actually like a professional director, someone you've got in there to sort of direct you on the day. It doesn't really matter as long as you've got someone there to kind of talk to. That's a really, really good way of kind of getting very comfortable in front of the camera and just having a conversation with someone rather than being like, right, I've got to sit and record now.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, I know Riverside came out with this like asynchronous recording. And I think we tried it once and it was so awkward and uncomfortable.
Oh,
I mean, it's a great feature for people who are like just already comfy on camera, but that way just feels really uncomfortable to be recording to your screen.
yeah, that would feel quite awkward, I imagine.
That's a great tip though. Just have it be a conversation. Yeah, before I really started working in marketing, I did videography before. So I'm like very, very passionate about what you're talking about. But when you get people who haven't been on camera before, yeah, you just kind of gotta have that person to person interaction. Pretend the camera's not there. And it's usually the best way. People get a little camera shy.
And I think people don't realize how much can be edited out as well. They think everything has to be perfect. But when you've got someone there talking to you, just asking you questions about your business, about a particular topic, and you're just talking back to them, they think, oh, it has to be, a certain way. It really doesn't. the editors, if you've got some really good editors, they can really make it work with that. As long as it's much better it being natural, and you're just getting your knowledge out there in a natural way, and talking to someone in that way, then you're thinking, right, I've got to stick to this exact script, and it's got to be like this, because that's just kind of very awkward. So I think you don't realize until you're actually in it and you're working with editors how much they can do. They are magicians. So don't worry too much about that.
That's amazing. I think too, we live in a day and age where people crave authenticity. And it can be really endearing when you hear people stumble over their words a little bit. It's just human. It's normal.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, I want to jump into, I'll let you maybe describe it, but it's kind of like a 5-step framework or 5 keys to great video content. And maybe we can talk through each of those, but do you mind just explaining what those 5, and I'm not exactly sure the exact words you use, so maybe you can describe it better than me.
Well, that's pretty accurate. 5 key elements of a good video, but they are mainly consistency, a good hook, a director, unique content, and editing. So I can go through all of those individually. But if you can do all those 5 things with your video strategy, then you will see some really, really good results.
Great. Well, let's get into it. I think let's talk about consistency. This is one I feel already very passionate about. I think, especially in a podcast, I mean, it's video, it's audio too. So many people just stop. I think the people 7 is where 90% of people they get tired, and it can be difficult to be consistent. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it's not the most sexy thing. And I think when people say, you just need to be consistent, I think people kind of roll their eyes and go, yeah, I know. But it makes a huge, huge difference. And when you stick to something consistently, it makes a huge difference. One, when with every client, we say to them, okay, what can we consistently do within your time schedule, and what can we realistically do? So we come up with a plan that you can realistically stick to, because there's no point being like, I'm going to do a podcast every day and then having no plan and no time of how to actually do that. So you have to make it realistic from the get-go and say, okay, I'm going to do like one long form video, 1 10-minute video a week, and then maybe 3 short forms, which would be like 1-minute videos a week. Okay, that's something that we can do. We could film that every single month. And you have to have that plan up front to be like, well, how are we going to do this? It's great to say, this is what I'm going to do, but how are we going to do this? Well, I'm going to make sure I schedule 1 day in my diary every single month to film this. Okay, great. Let's schedule it in there. You really have to be, set it up like that, so you actually stick to it. And the importance of consistency is that, when you're creating content, the algorithm gets used to you posting, okay, every Wednesday, this person does a 10-minute video and they post it out. And they're posting, every Monday and Tuesday and Friday, they're posting a short form video. And the algorithm starts to like that. It starts to like how consistently you are creating content. It starts to push it out a lot more. But more importantly, your audience gets to notice it as well. So if you're putting out, I'm going to put a long form video out every Wednesday, that means that then your audience gets used to that. You can email it out to your list. You can put it on social media and say, it's Wednesday and this is what I'm doing. And they start to get used to it. They start to tune in. They start to look forward to it. And whenever we start with this with our clients, we make sure that we have these set days and everything goes out on a set day, and all the kind of promotion around it as well. The emails that go out, the social media go out, all ties in with it. So people actually come to expect that is the day that you do something. And if you miss it, it's really odd. If you ever miss it, then people will email you and go, where's your video this week?
That's the goal, man.
You've done this for a year. I've been watching this for a year. Where have you been? And I actually got caught out with this. It was before Christmas. I was a bit poorly. I'd got a little bit waylaid with my posting. And someone actually commented on an older YouTube video that I'd made and gone, where's your content this week? I was like, oh my goodness. They notice because they tune in every week and they listen to you, and you don't realize, because they don't tell you that, you don't get to hear that, but people get used to it and they start listening to you or watching you every single week. And so they get used to it, and that's what builds the subscribers and the audience, and that's what builds that so much trust and loyalty. And it's hard because you don't get that feedback, and it would be lovely if every single person that watched your video was like, this is amazing, I'm going to tune in next week. Then you'd feel motivated. But it's hard when you don't get that, but you have to stick with it. And people do notice when you drop off.
I love that you got a comment. That's so wow. I think a lot of the times it can be like pretty lonely when you're making content and like people aren't commenting. The fact that you just missed a little bit, you got someone to say something is so hilarious to start off, but also very, I think, motivating.
Yeah, definitely.
People
It
looking
definitely was
forward to your
motivating.
stuff.
I actually posted about it on LinkedIn. I was like, I'm sorry to whoever this person is. I'm starting up again. So,
That's amazing. That's so cool. I know earlier when we had talked, you'd also mentioned that you can like batching content. I'm like a big believer in creating systems and doing what you need to do so you can be consistent. If you're just every morning, you're like, hey, what am I gonna post on LinkedIn? You're never gonna be consistent if you're just wondering how you're gonna do it. But how do you go about that batching strategy? I know you kind of mentioned maybe one day a month, but do you mind going into that in a bit more detail?
yeah, particularly with video, you have to batch. You can't be getting, especially if you're hiring someone to do it, getting a videographer in like every week or when you randomly decide it's going to get very expensive. So it's much easier to batch content. The way we do it is we kind of work out with our clients how much content we need to produce. So if it's, whatever it might be, one long form, three short form a week, okay, we know, okay, we can kind of get that done in a month if we have 6 hours of recording. So we kind of know based on our clients' experience levels and, how much content they need to create, sort of how much we need to sort of batch. So yeah, it is really good to do that in advance and to also plan your content in advance as well. I always think that planning content and creating content is like different sides of the brain almost. So what you don't want to be is like, I've got a video shoot in an hour, so I'm going to write down my video ideas. That doesn't really work. Because it's almost as if like if you have that time beforehand to really think about your ideas, think about what you want to sort of delve deep into and come up with that beforehand, then on the day, all you're thinking about is, okay, I need to just record and do this thing rather than doing both things, which I think are just completely separate tasks and require completely different sides of the brain.
When I did videography, man, I was the victim of those people not planning beforehand. They're just thinking they're gonna wing in. We're writing scripts while we're on set, and no, bad. It's bad. Don't do that. Yeah, that's so funny. Well, unless there's anything else you want to add to consistency, I think we got a lot of great stuff there. We can jump into a good strong hook.
A good strong hook, yes, yeah. So this is going to be probably the most important aspect of your video that gets people to stop scrolling and actually pay attention to it. It can be very difficult to do when you're actually creating video to think about that strong hook and what will make someone kind of stop, because I think people make the mistake of thinking, well, I'm putting out this free, really valuable content, and so it will just get views or it will just get, people commenting and liking on it and appreciating it. And they don't, because you need to give someone a reason to stop and actually pay attention. So one of the easiest ways to do this, and it's something that we do all the time for our own videos and our clients as well, is think about it in a sense of when you're selling something, a product or service or whatever, we're always told you have to have a testimonial, you have to have case studies, and that makes sense. You have to prove that people enjoy whatever it is that you're selling or have, found benefit from it. And that's exactly what you have to do with your free content. Even though it's free, people still have to spend their time on it. So you need to prove to them straight off the bat that it's worth spending time on. So in order to do that, that's why you have to have proof usually in your hook. So rather than say something like, how to get 1 million views on YouTube, you might say, I got our client 1 million views on YouTube in less than 6 months. These are the steps that we took to do that. So what you're saying is, I've already achieved this thing. This is how you're going to do it. So you're providing that proof in the hook. And that proof is something that really can get people to stop, because there's so many people trying to vie for their attention that you need to prove to them, I actually have the knowledge and skill set and experience in this map. I've done it. Here's the proof that I've done it. And you can show a picture of your client. And that's what we usually do. We've done this for our client, and then pops up our client on the screen so they can even, go and check them out. Make sure that they're legit, but it's constantly providing that proof. And usually, especially when you're just starting out, or even if you're a little bit well known, you're not massive, you still need to provide that proof to people to say, okay, this is worth you stopping right now and spending some time with me. So think of it like a testimonial or a case study. You constantly have to prove to people, okay, it's worth stopping right now and actually taking my time out on this content to actually listen to it.
Yeah. I've had a few other guests come on the show. They explain one thing that makes them, it's like their biggest marketing ick is when people use like these almost like rage bait kind of hooks in their posts. I like how you explain this is different. You're using like real case studies or stats on how you accomplish this. And then the video will explain kind of how to do that. Because I think that's just a really good way to connect that and just have that proof when you're explaining that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. If you're kind of scrolling something and then someone says, oh, I've done the thing that you really want to do for another client or a customer, or for myself, even if you've done it for yourself, you kind of stop with that. You kind of like, oh, okay, they've done it before. How did they? And then you promise them, you say to them, I'm going to tell you exactly how. That's quite compelling. It's a really, compelling way of getting someone's attention, and quite an easy one, to kind of hook them in. Something that we use quite often. And yeah, isn't rage baity, or, it doesn't, if you have any controversial opinions, or anything like that, you're just going out there, you're just showing how, you are experienced and you have integrity, and you're just going out there saying, I've done this thing. Do you want to learn how I did it for this person? And it's super easy.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier with AI too. You can't fabricate stats out of nothing. That's another great way to out. I'm sure, but well, we won't get into that. That's really unethical. Okay, let's go into your next one, which is unique storytelling.
Yes. So this is very similar, really, in terms of the hook, where it's about you and what you've done and proving. Unique storytelling and just unique content in general is making sure that your content isn't out there on the internet already. So, for example, I did that exact YouTube video, which was, how we got a client to 1 million views in 5 steps. And these are the 5 steps I'm actually talking about right now. That's content that doesn't exist anywhere, because I made it, it's based on the experience I had with the client, based on their exact results, and based on the kind of formula that we follow in our business. So there's plenty of content out there that will tell you, how to grow a successful YouTube channel, that will go through very generic points. But what you want to do is create content that is unique. That's the key to really great content that really resonates. It's using your own experiences, your own stories, your own mess ups, whatever they might be, your own failures, drawing on that, anecdotes, things that have happened that are unique to you that maybe AI could never come up with, or anyone else on the internet can come up with. That's what makes really compelling content stand out. And I always say, there's loads of things like top 10 writing tips, and then someone will also do top 11 writing tips. It's like, it's just churning out the same stuff over and over again. And it's like, if someone else can write or create that content, then that's a clear indicator that it's not good enough yet. So I think just drawing upon your own experiences and stories and things like that is what makes it stand out.
Yeah. Making it unique to you. There's nothing wrong with those blog posts, but I think just writing and video also just draws on experience and isn't generic. So I love you're starting off with the hook of the 1 million views, and that, that really stands out.
Yeah, I think just drawing upon, it's just making it about, and I think that's why people don't like it, because they think, oh, it's all about me. It's all about, and it's like, well, it is about you, but ultimately you're providing tons of value with it. So you're saying, I did this thing, or even that, I messed up here and this is what I've learned from it. those kind of things where you're telling those stories. Yes, it is about you, but there's nothing wrong with that, because what you're doing is you're not just showing off, you're actually providing value along with it. You're actually teaching something alongside it. So yeah, it's not about you necessarily, it's about what you're teaching and what someone gets out of it. So don't think of it of, I'm just talking about me all the time, which I think is sometimes, what holds people back from creating that kind of content. It's not. You're actually delivering tons of value from doing it that way.
Yeah. And it makes you stand out for sure. Would you say these frameworks apply the same to short form video as long form video?
Yeah, we still kind of use that for short form video as well. It has to be obviously a lot snappier. So, but yeah, we absolutely can use that for hooks for short form video. It's not every single hook that I'll need to provide proof, but certainly, for a lot of videos, I'll provide that proof and provide that uniqueness in every single video, short form video. What works really well for short form in making it unique is using really, really good examples that people have never heard of before. So whenever I say, I did a short form video about Victoria's Secret and their campaign recently that didn't do so well, and I did a short form video about that, just examining why that didn't work. And that did really well because people can relate to Victoria's Secret. They can relate to kind of these examples, Disney, Apple, all those kind of things. People know and understand those. So you're kind of putting it into a context for them that makes it really easy to understand. And that sometimes can be a really, really good thing. If you can explain things in the simplest way possible, that's a really good shortcut to really standing out. Someone who does this incredibly well is Cody Sanchez, where she talks about, I've learned so much about finance and the financial world from Cody Sanchez is a topic that I don't really understand and I've never really I've tried, but the language has always kind of put me off, whereas she really breaks it down and makes it extremely simple to understand. So she manages to stand out because she's able to do that more than anyone else. She puts things very simply and she's there with a blackboard and, everyone can kind of understand that. And if you can explain things in the simplest way, that's a really, really easy way on short form video, particularly to stand out.
She's also very good at hooks.
She
has just these, I think, going back to that point, I think that you mentioned it's the most important one. I think we keep coming back to that. It is just a really important way. Let's maybe talk about editing next. I love your videos on LinkedIn, a lot of your short form stuff. And I think a big part of it is your edits are so good and crisp and clean. But what advice do you have on just like maybe your editing style or how to accomplish that?
Yeah, I think for editing, and I mean, we work well. Our team has some amazing editors. I'm not an editor myself, but for any editing, I think it's finding your own style that's really important because people get to know that style. So we use kind of the same fonts, the same colors, the same emojis, the same type of style of graphics for every video that we do. Even the same kind of cuts and the way that things move around is exactly the same for each and every client, but is unique to them. So people get very used to seeing, and recognizing your kind of style. So that works incredibly well. And some of our clients have very, very vastly different styles of video editing. Some of it's quite heavy on the music, quite heavy on the graphics. Some of it isn't. It's very, very kind of, there isn't any music and it's just kind of quiet and and it kind of suits them and their personalities. So it's finding a style really that works for you. And that's quite fun, I think, for the editors in our sort of team to actually figure out the client, what they're like, what's going to resonate with the audience, and just keep trialing and testing it.
Yeah, I think video editing is such an art. And to discover those different styles that your clients might have, I highly recommend using a professional because editing is not always the easiest thing though. But I think for the people listening who are like on a really small, scrappy team, if you maybe don't have a budget, there are so many tools that can make it easier. And sometimes it just takes a lot of trial and error to figure it out. Like we love using Descript. I think that's a really just easy, user-friendly tool for people who haven't done video editing before. Yeah. Do you have any other just tips on that?
In terms of tools, mainly we use our video editors for it. And They have used tools like Opus and things like that, which are very good. But the main thing, and this is what we always recommend, even if you have a really small budget, spend it on editing more than anything else, because you can get tools and you can use those tools and spend ages. And I'm guilty of this. I'm going to get a new tool and I'm going to spend ages learning about the tool, and then it's not really in my kind of remit or area of expertise or something that I love doing. So I always recommend, where possible, if you have the smallest budget for video marketing and you've got a bit of money, to spend it on editing, because that's probably the part that you're going to least enjoy. And it's going to be, that time that you spend learning the tool and learning how to edit a video, you could probably spend from, getting more sales somewhere else. So it's probably better use of your time to actually not try and spend ages learning the tools. But if there are some brilliant tools out there. If you haven't, no budget at all and you're just starting fresh, there are some really, really good tools out there to do that.
Yeah, the number of hours I spend on YouTube trying to figure out Premiere Pro, it is a very complicated tool, and I would say I'm a novice, but I can put together a very simple video. Let's talk about the last one then, with a professional director.
Yes. So this is what we do for our clients, but necessarily what everyone has to do. Just having someone there, as I said at the beginning, a friend to be there on the day or a couple of hours when you're filming is incredibly important, because the amount of mistakes that I make, like that I record video, that I don't even realize that I do. I'll say the wrong word. I'll say an anecdote which I think is completely on point, or a metaphor, and the director will be like, "What on earth is that metaphor about?" What? Why does it make sense? In my head, it made complete sense, So someone there very kindly catch you. Even things like, I will start a video with my eyes closed, because you're blinking. Start a video not looking up, not smiling, not having enough energy. Sometimes, they'll pick up on all of those things. And it makes the difference between, a good video and a great video, when you've got someone there really coaching you, really saying, okay, that sentence didn't make sense. You need to rework that. Or can you try this hook as well? Or you're not looking up, you're blinking, or that metaphor was terrible, whatever it might be. Someone there to really catch you, because as soon as you start to not be as clear as possible, and it's going back to that, as the clearest content, the simplest content actually wins. As soon as you stop doing that, you lose someone, because people, they don't have very good attention spans nowadays. So you will lose someone as soon as you start to not make complete sense or not be clear enough. They're not going to stick with you for minutes and minutes trying to gather what you're saying. So having someone there to catch you in places, where you need to be caught, is really, really good, and having that person there. It doesn't have to be a professional director, we're not asking Steven Spielberg to come in here, but it is really helpful if it even can just be a friend or a colleague, just to be like, I wasn't sure about that bit. What do you mean about that? Even someone to say, what do you mean about that? And you dig a little bit further. Our director, constantly gets our clients to dig further, because they'll get excited. They'll be like, well, what do you mean by that? And then the client, they'll go into more detail and more depth. And then our editors will then, put it together and make it sound great. But it's constantly having that person to ask, well, what do you mean by that? Oh, what does that mean? When you go into more detail, and it's in that detail that real gold is found, just off the cuff, that people actually say. So having someone there to do that for you is just really, really incredible. And it makes a huge, huge difference to videos, definitely.
Yeah, you can fix a lot in editing, but you can't fabricate something out of nothing. Yeah, you gotta dig deeper. And with the eye contact too, I don't know about your teams, but I feel like that would be incredibly difficult to animate eye contact on the screen or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, AI is coming along, actually. It might be. I think I actually have seen something where if you're looking down or looking at a script, it sort of fixes your eyes, but it still looks a bit creepy.
Yeah. Well, those are some really, really powerful tips just to creating great video content. We're coming close on our time though, so I think we'll just wrap up with one last question, and this one's kind of a fun one, Lyndsay. What is your biggest content marketing ick?
Oh, biggest content marketing ick. I think, and for me, it would definitely be probably those clickbait titles or hooks, especially on LinkedIn. I see them all the time where people actually say something and then they completely go against it the next sentence. So they'll say something incredibly controversial and then they'll be like, oh, that's what some people think, but not me. It's like, it's really annoying.
But they say it like it's their opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest icks I have. Like when someone gets me to read more and then I've discovered that they don't actually believe what they've said in their first sentence, it really frustrates me. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest ick for me.
Yeah. They maybe get those first few seconds of a view and then everybody's just angry.
Yeah, everyone
That's
just gets
great.
annoyed.
That's great. Well, where can people go to find you, Lyndsay?
The best place would be .com, that's my website. And on LinkedIn, it would be just searching for Lyndsay Cambridge. And I'm on there quite regularly.
Perfect. Highly recommend following Lyndsay on LinkedIn. She posts really valuable content. Her videos are honestly so engaging. And if I think I sent one of your videos, Lyndsay, to my team, I was like, we need to make videos like this. This is just great marketing. I love your stuff.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, well, that's really great. The best review I think I've had.
It's an honest review. I'm not getting paid to say this. I very much enjoy it. Great. Well, thanks again for joining the show today, Lyndsay.
Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Content Logistics. Make sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss the next episode. Bye.